Why is doing this with a 1 kilo pink dumbbell stupid? Frankly, a number of reasons, but let's talk about the basics, the fundamentals of why it's inefficient from an anatomical and physiological perspective. Number one, different types of muscle contraction. Remember that skeletal muscle, the muscles that we use to move our skeleton and wiggle, can only contract. That is the only function that they have. They cannot forcibly extend. So if you think I'm going to use my biceps to flex at the elbow or my brachialis to flex at the elbow, yes, well done, you are doing that. If you think I'm going to use my biceps now to extend my arm, no, you're not doing that. You're using your triceps. Your biceps do not extend the arm. Your brachialis does not extend the arm. They cannot do that. This ties directly into the different types of contraction. Contraction number one, concentric. This occurs when a muscle is shortening under tension. The biceps brachialis here, it is shortening, which is producing the flexion at the forearm. Another example, deltoid shortens to produce abduction of the arm at the shoulder joint. Second type of contraction, eccentric. This is the opposite. The muscle is lengthening under tension. I have a weight in my hand, I'm extending, right? There is tension on the biceps. It's not forcibly contracting, it is lengthening under tension. That is an eccentric contraction. This muscle here is going from the shortened position to a stretched position or a lengthened position. Same way, deltoid is shorter when it's abducted. As I lower down, right, it's extending. An eccentric contraction. Both are contractions because muscles cannot forcibly extend. Last type of contraction, isometric contraction. This is where a muscle is generating force, and to be fair, our muscles, due to natural tone, are always generating a certain amount of force. This is where a muscle is generating force, but the length of the muscle itself is not changing. For instance, holding our arms out to the side. The deltoid here is not changing in length, but it is exerting force in order to keep this abduction. Holding my water bottle halfway up through a bicep curl. My biceps brachii, my brachialis are producing force, but they are not changing length. Isometric contraction. Now, we have a wide body of literature at this point that supports the notion that concentric and eccentric focused training is more effective for various forms of hypertrophy than isolated isometric work. That is to say that this is more effective than this. Now, to be clear, isometric training is not invalid. It builds mental fortitude. It is good for improving your body's ability to function during lactic acid buildup, and it will increase the amount of calories that you're burning, so as part of a HIIT workout or general cardio, absolutely fine. But when most people get in the gym, they are looking for either muscle size or strength, or calorie burn. Those are the general objectives. Isometric work is inefficient for both of those goals. There is always something better you can do for either one of those goals than a plank. You want a stronger core, work in the 1 to 6 rep range, flexing your core. You want to burn calories, lower your body fat percentage so you get more visible abs, then go on a cardio machine for Zone 2 for half an hour. That is more effective than doing a plank. Simple as. I want to emphasize as well that isometric training can elicit various forms of hypertrophy. It can stimulate growth. Key factors being proximity to failure, effort. And it is likely, though this is conjecture on my part, that one of the reasons that isometric training shows in literature to be less effective for hypertrophy is because it's harder. It is harder to do 3 sets of this for 60 seconds because lactic acid gets involved. And it's very hard to get your failure mechanism to be mechanical tension when working isometrically. It's entirely possible in my mind that isometric training could well be just as effective from an anatomical or physiological standpoint as concentric and eccentric work, but it's simply less easy to implement to the degree that is needed to stimulate change. Before we wrap up, let's have a quick word on efficiencies of lifts. When we are lifting a dumbbell, the primary cause of our troubles, our woes, is gravity. Gravity, for all intents and purposes, pulls weights directly down. And in most exercises, that resistance, that pull, is a straight line, point A to point B. If you release the weight, it's going to go in that straight line. And that is the exact profile that we want to enact change. When resistance wants to go from A to B, we want to take the weight from B to A. This is why in a deadlift, so much of the form is about keeping the weight going in a straight line from A to B. From a purely biomechanical and physiological standpoint, any movement that is perpendicular to the line of resistance is wasted effort. It is effort that is not going into getting you more reps, more effort, more time under tension, more range of motion. And we will use the pink dumbbell example. Right? In this case, I am using my clavicular acromial deltoid primarily to hold this weight where it is. If I do this, I have added no resistance. I have basically done absolutely nothing because this is not moving the weight against any greater or lesser resistance because the weight is being pulled down. So when muscles like my subscapularis, the only anteriorly located rotator cuff muscle, is assisting this medial rotation of the arm with the pectoralis major, I get a contraction here, producing this medial rotation. I'm not pulling against resistance. I'm pulling perpendicular to it. So there's no additional requirement. I'm not fighting the force of the weight here. And this is something that you can look at with a lot of different lifts. And it's important to consider when we look at optimization of our lifting, because the more time we can spend in the difficult portions, in the portions of the movement that require work against the line of resistance, the more value we can get for the time that we spend. Another good example, bicep curl. Few people are going to debate that biomechanically the most difficult portion of a bicep curl is going to be about here, right? 90 degrees, when the weight, the resistance is pushing diagonally down. In fact, about here to here in a bicep curl is the most challenging portion. Here to here is, relative to the former, tantamount to useless. Because again, resistance is here. And this is perpendicular to the resistance. When resistance is down, weight is coming here. When my brachialis and biceps brachii are performing this movement, they are not pulling against resistance. In order for this to be beneficial, I would have to get a cable machine and have the resistance this way. In that case, yes, this would be beneficial. For a standard bicep curl with a resistance pulling downwards, this is not a valuable portion of the movement. Point being, for resistance training, if our objectives are strength and size, we want to spend as much time eliciting concentric and eccentric contractions through resisted movement as possible. And this is something to consider in almost every exercise that you do. It's why I advise in lat pull downs and pull-ups to not go so far that your elbows start going backwards. Because again, resistance is here. If your elbows, which are a good indicator of what your latissimus dorsi is doing, if your elbows start going back, you are moving perpendicular to the line of resistance, which makes the movement less efficient. You will be able to get less reps in that valued, resisted portion of the movement than you would otherwise. And over time, those minor inefficiencies will cost you something. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you've learned something. Please do check out workoutways.co.uk if you're interested in my coaching and what I do, or you can contact me on WhatsApp, email, whatever you like. Stuff is on the website if you do want to get in contact with me. But until next time, ask any questions you want me to answer. I will certainly answer them. Farewell.